Well, hello everyone, stereophonicstuff here with another computer-related video. And it's not just any regular computer-related video, it is a netbook-related video. Specifically, a Dell Inspiron Mini 1018 netbook from 2010. Now this computer has actually been relegated to sitting on a shelf for the past year or so now. It has some personality disorders, if you will, and some quirks that are keeping it from being able to be used on a daily basis. And this computer was one of the stragglers in the declining netbook market in mid-2010. That's when this was purchased, although I believe it was released sometime in November of 2010, right before the Christmas season. And like most computers, netbooks that is, from that time period, this did ship with, yes, Windows 7 Starter. But trying to run Windows 7 on a netbook that's got a gigabyte of RAM and an N455 Atom processor that's running at 1.66 gigahertz is nothing spectacular. In fact, it's probably not much better than running or trying to use Windows 7 on an old Intel Pentium 4 with less than a gigabyte of RAM. It's just not going to work. And if it does, it's not going to be fun or usable. Needless to say, though, this computer did come with a few nice features. When it was new, it did have a stereo 3.5mm headphone jack, but it doesn't have a microphone or line level input. And this isn't even a combination mono microphone and stereo headphone jack. It's just a headphone jack, a USB 2.0 port, and a 10100 Ethernet card, which makes this a great computer for diagnosing network troubles and problems, which was one of the main uses this computer got when it was new. Now on this side we do have a VGA jack to hook up an external monitor, but as with a lot of these netbooks and newer computers, it doesn't have actual screws on either side to tighten down the VGA connector, so if you just tug this barely, you'll get a bad connection. We do have another USB 2.0 port, and over on this side an integrated SD MMC card slot, which is a nice feature, especially since this only has two USB ports to begin with. If you had to use some sort of a card reader, that would take away get another of these USB ports, leaving you with only one port to use with flash drives or anything of that nature. And I really don't understand why they didn't put 3 USB ports on here, which seemed to be the status quo with netbooks of the time. That way you could at least have a mouse, a keyboard, and then have one open USB port to hook up either a USB hub, an external hard drive, or just a regular USB flash drive. And the one nice thing that these netbooks did have going for them is the amazing amount of battery life. This battery here is a 48 watt-hour battery, OEM from Dell. It's not a third-party battery or anything like that, and you can get 9 hours out of this battery. I kid you not. Just running this with basic programs, internet browser, things like that, 9 hours. Lower the screen brightness, turn off the sound, don't use the internet, turn off the Bluetooth, and you will most likely get an excess of 10 to 11 hours. And thankfully, due to the limitations of standard definition video, I could show you the product key, or at least from this distance, and you won't be able to read that. But this computer did come with Windows 7 Starter, which in my personal opinion was a terrible, terrible decision. Windows 7 requires a bit more processing power to run, so you put that on an already slow computer with limited resources that sometimes locks up and has trouble running XP. Well, you try to run Windows 7, even the Starter Edition, and you're going to bring this computer to a crawl. And that is not even talking about the OEM bloatware that was included with this computer from Dell when it was new. It came with a webcam utility, a bunch of different useless, superfluous programs that didn't do anything, and just ate up processor resources and RAM. And over on the rear of the computer we have the DC power jack, which has since failed, and a Kensington lock. For some reason, the original OEM charger that Dell shipped with this computer was not a right angle adapter plug that would hang out here and rest and put a lot of undue stress and strain on that power jack, and it all produces the same result, which is nothing. It doesn't charge the computer, there's no indication of it being connected, and it's most likely due, once again, to the strain that was put onto this power jack when this computer was new with the original OEM charger that was not a right angle adapter. And yes, this computer is not in my favorite color. And to top that all off, it is a fingerprint, scratch, and smudge magnet. As you can see just from my handling this to record this video, there's several smudges, there's quite a few scratches, and it is reflective, which isn't really a big problem, unless of course you're trying to use a screen in daylight or in bright rooms or situations. And just to demonstrate that and to push my point a bit further, you can see that it's like looking into a mirror and you can see a perfect image of my camcorder. That should not be, and it makes for a somewhat difficult experience and puts strain, at least on my eyes, when I'm trying to look and read an article and instead I'm seeing a reflection of myself in the screen. And we do have just a standard VGA web camera, although it's not the worst I've seen, at least in a netbook. It certainly beats the one that was included in my Asus EPC, which was the subject of its own video a few months ago. We have an LED indicator light to its right, which allows you to see when your webcam is in use, which I think is especially useful if you do have to have a web camera. So if you do have some kind of a malicious program or something of that nature that's trying to access your camera remotely, you'll know when it's being accessed. And then to its left, you'll see that there's a single hole here for the single mono microphone, which does a fairly good job at picking up sound. And the reason that microphone sounds so good is because they decided to put it on the screen and out in the palm rest, so it doesn't pick up all of their tapping on the keyboard and the noise from you using the mouse and the buttons and the noise from the hard drive or the fan. And you may have already noticed this computer has no outlet for a fan at all. It just has a few vents down here, and that's it. This uses what Dell calls passive cooling technology. It's such an underpowered computer that the heat it generates is easily dissipated through the few vents that are on the bottom and the keyboard as well. Which actually makes for a nice experience, especially if you don't like to hear fans running all the time. The only noise you do hear from this machine is that of the hard drive. And again, you can see why I really despise glossy bezels on screens as well, because even when you try to clean them, they scratch so easily. They show fingerprints, dust, scratches, and all manner of foreign objects that just make it look really dirty and filthy, even though I actually just cleaned this a few moments before recording this video. That's interesting. I did not notice that before, but it looks like this bezel is actually cracked. So this must have undergone some kind of stress or something resting on it. I don't know how that could have happened, but that's not supposed to be happening. Now, along with the DC power jack problem that plagues this computer, it also seems to have a mind and personality all its own. The keyboard does not seem to want to behave in any way a decent keyboard should behave. The spacebar, well, that's another story entirely to itself. Usually most of the time it doesn't even work, and to get it to work you have to slam your finger down on it. However, most of the time, even when you do smash it down, it doesn't work. And if it does work, it makes double and triple spaces, which again is not conducive to producing a decently worded and properly formatted document. You're going to have double and triple spaces, sometimes no spaces at all, and that just doesn't work out. And also, the touchpad has worn out areas where they don't even work, especially right where it's almost like glass right here. You'll be scrolling, and as soon as you hit that one area, the cursor won't move at all. It just is worn out so bad that it doesn't actually work anymore, so you have to use these parts of the touchpad that aren't as worn out as the center of it. And you do have an LED power indicator which doubles as the charge indicator, so when you're charging this it does turn up and light up, and when the battery is going dead it turns an amber yellow. But a nice feature that is a welcome feature on a netbook like this is a hard drive indicator light. Now with a computer like this that is as underpowered as this, many times it'll lock up while you're doing something and you won't know if the whole operating system has locked up or just the individual program, or if the computer is still doing something. So many times when this is frozen, I'll go ahead and I'll see that the hard drive indicator light is still rapidly blinking and flashing, which lets me know that the computer fortunately has not frozen up, but it's just come to a standstill. It's trying to do something. So I just wait, and usually the problem resolves itself in just a matter of a few moments. Aside from this keyboard's occasional flights of fancy, you have your arrow keys down here, you've got your control and function keys, a Windows key, and up here pretty much remains the same as it does with any other regular laptop computer. Up here on the top we have several features, shortcut functions, such as to enable or disable the external VGA jack, and to switch over from either this built-in display or the external display. We have a wireless control, which actually is not hardware based, it's software based. More on that in a little while. A battery indicator, which works with Dell's OEM software. Display brightness and volume controls, all of which are accessed directly. You don't need to preface it by clicking the function key, so if I want to mute the volume, I just click that. Now when you want to access the traditional F keys, such as F5 to refresh a page, you'd actually need to click the function key and then F5, although this can be changed around and altered through the BIOS. Let's go ahead and power this computer up, see what's packing under the hood. F2 brings us to the BIOS on this machine. Now I've just gone ahead and covered up the service tag with a piece of tape, because actually when you purchase these computers directly from Dell, I believe your name, address, and other information are kept on file in correlation with said service tag. Having said that though, this is once again an Inspiron 1018, just running an Intel Atom CPU. It's got a 250 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive, which I believe is a 5400 RPM hard drive. And it seems now that the keyboard is again up to its old tricks. The right arrow key is not doing anything, and just like the spacebar, you have to slam it down for it to work, which again is doesn't make for a very nice experience using the keyboard. Let's see here, we've got SpeedStep technology, the integrated NIC. You can have that. The integrated network interface card can be enabled or disabled on demand through the BIOS. USB emulation and USB wake support is of course disabled and enabled respectively. And the SATA operation is in parallel ATA or IDE compatibility operation, so that it's compatible with Windows XP, since the XP install on here does not have the built-in SATA drivers for this particular motherboard and chipset. And there's that function key behavior option that I showed you before, the one it comes with, whereas for example to mute the volume you just push that. It's beeping at me, it doesn't like that. You can switch that to the traditional layout where you have to click FN, and then to, let's say, change the volume, you'd have to click FN and then the key. You can just change that in here from multimedia to function. I'll just leave it on the multimedia mode. And then charger behavior, you can set it to whether or not you want it to actually disable or enable charging of the internal battery, which is convenient if you're using this, let's say, at a desk for most of its time, so you can disable charging. And last but most certainly not least, you can disable the internal Bluetooth, which I was amazed to even discover that this computer supported that. This was not exactly the high-end netbook of the time, but I guess it does have Bluetooth, which can make for a nice music playing PC, as well as the internal wireless. You can disable that through the BIOS or by using the control down here, which disables it through software in the Windows operating system. And having said all that, let's boot into Windows XP now. And yes, before everyone decides to troll the comment section and turn it into an all-out free-for-all, I don't care that Windows XP is out of support. I'm still going to use it. This computer isn't used on the internet anymore, and I really have no need to upgrade this to anything newer than XP. In fact, trying to run Windows 7 on here, even with the factory installation of Windows 7 Starter, was quite frankly unusable. So Windows XP will stay on here. Let's go ahead and boot in here now. And I think the built-in audio is disabled on here. Muted at least. Okay, Adobe wants us to upgrade. Well, that's not a good time right now. Let's close that out. And Windows XP is complaining that automatic updates and antivirus software is turned off. Let's go ahead and have a look at what's going on this computer. So we've got a slew of tray icons down here, mostly for the drivers and things like that. We've got one for the Intel Graphics Accelerator, the Synaptics touchpad, and then right there, that little icon right there, it looks like a wireless icon. Right next to the touchpad icon is the software-based wireless enable and disable control. So it's software-based. I believe it resets each time you restart Windows. We've also got the audio driver, the battery indicator, and the Bluetooth indicator. Once again, pretty surprised that this computer did come with Bluetooth. If I bring that up, it's probably not going to find any devices. I don't have any Bluetooth speakers right now. But you can use this computer with Bluetooth, and once again, it'll make for a very nice music playing PC. Hook this up to Pandora, Spotify, or any of the sundry other internet radio stations, or even your own music library. as usual for these sorts of computers, it wasn't used for much of anything else aside from internet browsing and what looks to be music and video playback. Join.me remote desktop connection software so that you can get technical support on this machine. Now, I've actually created a new account. The original account that was on this machine had the entire start menu disabled, and the only two icons that showed up when you click start were the Internet Explorer and then the Mozilla Firefox icons. Nothing else was shown and was disabled. And I believe this is XP Service Pack 3. Yes, it is. And once again, just some basic information on the system properties. Let's go ahead and take some more advanced information down. Let's see here, refreshing system information. Alright, this screen's not telling us anything we didn't already know, but it does give us a bit more of an in-depth look at everything. It's obviously an x86 based PC. Can't go running 64-bit Windows XP or 7 on here. And we can see here, nothing interesting. It's just running revision 2 of the Dell BIOS. Let's go ahead and take a look at the components. And once again, we can definitely see that the Bluetooth module is installed and functional on this machine, which can't be said for my other Dell Inspiron Mini 1018, which was the same model of this computer, but only in black, which is very strange. They were both purchased at the same time from the same store, same listing online, so I'm not sure what gives. Let's go ahead and fire up the device manager, see what's going on in there. Okay, I don't see anything out of the ordinary in there. Everything's installed and working. And Dell did not officially release Windows XP drivers on here, which I think was a bit of a misstep if you ask me, especially on this computer's limited resources. They should have at least given you the option to downgrade to XP on your own and accordingly provide XP drivers. So I did have to hunt them down on Dell's website. You can find them if you do know how to search for them, and that's exactly how I was able to get everything working and functional on here, including the Bluetooth module. Alright, let's fire up Mozilla Firefox here, see which version we're running. That'll give us some clue as to when this was last used. Although I think this was briefly used about 2 or 3 months ago, so may have a newer version of Firefox. Yeah, we're running 29.0.1, and it's now automatically downloading the update, which is not what I wanted it to do at this exact moment. Now, before I go ahead and do my usual YouTube test on here, since that seems to be a perfectly strenuous test for these underpowered netbooks, let's go ahead and try CNN, which seems to sometimes have a bloated website, or at least bloated with flash advertisements. Yep, and it seems to be, they seem to be holding true to that theory and that motto, because they're trying to load a flash advertisement here. And what are they trying to load? Okay, some sort of an NBA. Yep, this is exactly why I use an ad blocker, because these websites are just loaded with a slew of obnoxious and processor-intensive flash advertisements that don't really necessarily need to be animated to get their point across. I mean, look at how slow this is making this computer. I'm scrolling down, and it's not doing anything, and it's all attributed to this flash advertisement. Let me go ahead and see if I can scroll down here. Okay, no, now it's locking up. There we go. Alright, it's just locked up again now. I don't know what it's trying to do. It's not doing anything. This thing is just crashed or locked up. Stop. Oh, unresponsive script. Yep, stop script. JavaScript locking up again. Oh, that's what it's trying to do. It was trying to play the video that is embedded amongst this flash advertisement. So that's why it was locking up all of a sudden. That's a bit interesting. But once you get past those ads, the internet's pretty usable. Let's try to go ahead and just load up a... let's just load up just a basic article here on CNN. And CNN seems to have an obsession with embedding auto-playing videos in their articles, which, again, why do you need to have an auto-playing video? Just let us click play. It's not that difficult. Yep, it's now locked up the computer again. It's trying to play it. Yep, it's trying to... No, it's trying to play an advertisement. That's what it's trying to do. So that's, again, why it's locking up this computer. Yep, and I didn't click anything. It's trying to play an ad for Lexus. Again, I don't know why it's so difficult to give us the choice to play the video if and when we want to actually watch it. If I wanted to watch videos, I'd go to YouTube. But needless to say, the article loads just fine. And just for kicks and grins, let's try to play this advertisement, which again, I don't know what's going on. This touchpad, aside from the dead spots on it, it seems to have drag lock enabled, which I never use. I really dislike that feature. So when you tap to click, it'll stay as if you're holding the mouse button down until you tap again, which is really annoying. There's no way to... Okay, let's go to full screen here. Skip that. Okay, that was an interesting way to end the commercial. 15 seconds of just a still image. Now, I believe that CNN records their videos and uploads them as 360p, 640 by 360 MPEG-4 or FLV videos, so they actually play decently smoothly, even in full screen mode, which can't be said for YouTube. Okay, now let's try YouTube, since usually that's where a lot of people use these netbooks for, aside from reading documents and news articles. And let's go ahead and try to watch a video. Now, one quick note that I definitely want to make a point of is when you have a malfunctioning keyboard that puts in random characters, puts in no characters at all, or doesn't have a working or functional spacebar, trying to enter in your passwords or other information like that is very difficult, especially if you're visiting a site that institutes some kind of a lockout policy, whereas if you try to enter in your password incorrectly more than a certain allotment of times, it will lock you out of the page for any predetermined amount of time. So, in this kind of a scenario, I ended up having to type my password in Notepad to make sure I got it typed correctly, copy it, and then paste it into the website. And I think it's going to try to autoplay this YouTube video. Yes, it is. And it does play smoothly. Mind you, this is only playing in 360p mode and not 480p. If we actually try to open this in a new page here, and attempt to ask this computer to play anything in 480p, it's not going to work. Now I'll leave what is going on? Now I'll leave everyone to make their own judgment and decisions, but this just goes to show you that Adobe Flash Player doesn't make efficient use of a computer's resources. I'm trying to play this in 480p, and you could see that there are some issues with it seems like it's dropping frames and not playing very smoothly. Let's skip forward and see if that fixes the problem any. Nope, it isn't. In fact, it looks like it's made it worse. And this is simply playing in 480p. This is not even trying to play it in 720p. However, if you download this video and play it back in a program outside of an internet browser, such as VLC Media Player Classic, or anything of that nature, it will play just fine. In fact, sometimes you can get on by playing 720p videos if they're encoded to the correct codec and format that agrees with this computer's processor. But YouTube and internet videos alike will most likely have to be left in 360p mode for any appreciable amount of decent playback. Anything more than 360p is just asking for trouble, and most likely brings this computer to a crawl. But just to go ahead and do a little demonstration here, let's go ahead and switch this back over to 480p, switch over to Task Manager, and see what's going on this computer. And would you look at that, 99% CPU usage, 100%. Well, I wouldn't doubt it. Of course, that's all because we're trying to play it in Flash, although I don't know if HTML5 would prove to be any better. And now for a demonstration of this computer's built-in audio, using just its single monophonic tinny as anything speaker that's built in on the bottom of the case underneath the right side of the palm rest. Let's go ahead and try to play a music video without having to have ads on it. And it seems like we're muted, and that drag lock is enabled again, so it just keeps locking on the volume. That could get annoying quick. Okay, it's not unmuted the audio. There we go. So again, very tinny, but at least it gets to a decent volume. You can actually hear what's playing on it for the most part. And unlike my IBM ThinkPad, the volume, because they put the speaker facing down, if you put this on a hard surface such as a desk, for the most part the sound reverberates off of the desk and projects at you. My IBM ThinkPad has it on the left and right sides of the touchpad and comes straight out and really doesn't do a very good job. In fact, the volume doesn't go very loud. This actually has it beat by quite a few decibels. It's not audiophile quality, but it does get nice and loud at least. This computer most likely will continue to sit inside of this case, which it has done for the last few months, and sit in there until I decide to find a use for this or become inclined enough to attempt to repair the DC power jack, although it does seem to be a somewhat arduous process, as you need to remove this entire top bezel, keyboard, as well as this screen, because the screen actually screws down and covers up and restricts your access to the DC jack. So, time to shut this computer off and wrap up this video, clocking in at just under 35 minutes.